2 years. Then I got there 5 years. They said to me, before we started, and that's a true story, before the project started.
Some kids are born into almost unbelievable fame. They grow up in houses that look more like palaces. Their every move is documented, and their futures seem written in the stars, destined to follow in their parents' colossal footsteps. But what happens when those famous kids grow up? What happens when the path laid out for them, paved with gold and platinum records, isn't the one they want to walk? It's easy to look at the children of legends and think their lives are easy, that success is just a birthright. For many of them, though, the journey to find their own identity becomes an uphill battle fought in the most public way imaginable. They have to work twice as hard to prove that their success is their own, that they are more than just a famous last name. This is a story about one such child, the son of a woman whose voice is known in every corner of the globe. But this isn't a story about music. It's a story about risk, about legacy, and about a very different kind of world stage. For most of his life, he has lived in the shadow of a global music icon. But now, Celine Dion's son isn't holding a microphone. He's stacking chips and risking it all at the World Series of Poker. And in doing so, he's finally confirming the one thing many suspected he inherited. Not from his mother, but from his late father. To understand the weight of René Charles, Angelil's recent moves, you first have to understand the world he was born into. This wasn't just a famous family. It was an empire built on the singular, earth-shattering talent of his mother, Celine Dion. For decades, her voice has been a global constant, a force of nature that has sold over 200 million records worldwide. She isn't just a singer, she's a phenomenon, an icon whose power ballads have become the soundtrack to millions of lives. At the center of this universe was René Charles, born on January 25, 2001. His birth wasn't just a family event, it was global news. As the firstborn son of Celine and her husband-manager René Angelil, he was instantly seen as the heir to a musical dynasty. He grew up not in a quiet suburban neighborhood, but in the shimmering 24/7 spectacle of Las Vegas, the very city his mother conquered with her record-breaking residencies. His childhood was a whirlwind of backstage passes, private jets, and the constant glare of paparazzi cameras. From the moment he could walk and talk, the world watched, wondering, would he inherit the voice, the stage presence? The pressure was immense, an unspoken expectation hanging in the air. Everyone saw him as a prince in waiting, destined to ascend to the musical throne his mother and father had so painstakingly built. Celine herself has said that being a mom is her greatest reward, a role she cherishes above her career. This protective love created a sanctuary, but it couldn't build a wall high enough to keep out the weight of the world's expectations. Imagine being a teenager trying to figure out who you are, while the world projects an image onto you. This wasn't just the shadow of a famous singer, it was the shadow of the Celine Dion. It was also the shadow of his father, René Angelil, the brilliant manager who discovered a 12-year-old Celine and mortgaged his own home to finance her first album, sculpting her raw talent into a global brand. René Angelil was the architect of the dream, a force in his own right. For René Charles, these weren't just parents, they were titans. Their love story, which famously overcame a 26-year age gap that his grandmother initially opposed, was legendary on its own. To be the child of this union was to be born into a narrative already written for you. The privilege was undeniable, but with it came a unique kind of confinement, a gilded cage where the bars are made of public perception. The easy path, the expected path, was clear. Pick up a microphone and continue the dynasty. For a time, it even seemed like he might. But inside this gilded cage, another passion was taking root, a legacy inherited not from the pop star, but from the man who stood beside her. While the world knew René Angelil as the masterful manager behind Celine Dion, he had another side that thrived away from the music charts. René was a poker player. And he wasn't just a casual hobbyist. He was a deeply passionate and skilled player, a respected figure in the high-stakes poker scene. He was known to compete against some of the best players in the world in legendary Las Vegas poker rooms. He was a man who understood risk, not just in business but at the felt table. With lifetime live tournament earnings of over $750,000, his dedication to the game was serious. For him, poker was a discipline of strategy, psychology, and nerve, an intellectual battleground where fame meant nothing and only skill mattered. This was the world René Charles was quietly being introduced to. He has said in interviews that his education in poker began with his father when he was just 5 years old. Imagine that scene. The global music manager sitting down with his young son, not to teach him scales, but the intricate dance of check raises and bluffs. In his eulogy at his father's funeral, a then 15-year-old René Charles spoke of the passions they bonded over: golf, hockey, poker, and smoked meat. This wasn't just a pastime, it was a profound connection. In a life defined by his mother's massive career, the poker table became a sacred space for father and son. It was a private inheritance, a legacy of strategic thinking and calculated risk-taking passed down from one René to another. Then, tragedy struck. On January 14, 2016, just 2 days shy of his 74th birthday, René Angelil passed away after a long battle with throat cancer. The loss was devastating. In his heartbreaking eulogy, René Charles stood before the world and said, "15 years is not a long time for a son to get to know his father. You left me now with enough good memories of you to share with my younger brothers." In the years that followed, the passion his father had ignited only intensified. Poker was no longer just a game. It was a living tribute. Every hand he played was a way of keeping his father's spirit alive. While his mother carried her husband's musical legacy on stage, René Charles was carrying his legacy in a different arena, one chip at a time. He was drawn to the idea that while luck plays a role in the short term, long term, the better player is going to win. For a young man trying to prove he was more than just a famous name, that idea held an irresistible appeal. Before René Charles Angelil went all in on poker, he first had to confront the towering expectation that had followed him his entire life: music. It was almost inevitable that he'd try. And for a time, he stepped through the golden gates of the industry. In 2018, under the name Big Tip, he quietly dropped a few tracks on SoundCloud. He didn't use his family's platform to promote them. In fact, he didn't even tell his mom at first. The style was a world away from her soaring ballads. This was moody trap and hip-hop, featuring remixes of artists like The Weeknd. Surprisingly, the tracks gained traction on their own. This led to a more formal release in 2021, when, at age 20, he released a 5-song EP titled Casino, under the name R.C. Angelil. The title itself was a perfect nod to the two worlds pulling at him: the casino he shared with his father and the music of his mother. Celine was incredibly supportive, posting on social media how proud she was. "My love for him is so strong," she wrote, "and it touches me deeply that one of his passions is also one of mine." But his foray into music seemed more like an exploration than a career declaration. It was as if he was trying on the family business suit only to realize it wasn't a perfect fit. He was acutely aware of the Nepo baby narrative and seemed determined to subvert it, admitting that taking the easy path didn't appeal to him. While the music showed he had his own voice, his true passion lay elsewhere. The pivot wasn't sudden, but a gradual, deliberate shift. He had been playing poker all along, and after turning 21, he started taking it more seriously, grinding his way through smaller tournaments. His journey was filled with the humbling reality of early exits and small victories, which was entirely his own. He was putting in the hours, studying the game, and preparing for the moment when that hard work would finally pay off. The World Series of Poker, WSOP, isn't just another tournament. It's the ultimate test of skill and endurance. Every summer, thousands of players descend on Las Vegas, each putting up the $10,000 buy-in for the main event, all dreaming of becoming a world champion. This was the arena where René Charles decided to make his stand. At 24 years old, he entered a recent main event for his third attempt. As he admitted himself, his first 2 tries were disastrously short. "I think the first 2 times I played, I didn't make it to dinner on day 1, he said. But this time was different. Day by day, as hundreds and then thousands of players were eliminated, René Charles survived. He wasn't just scraping by. He was building his chip stack, playing with confidence and discipline. By day 4, he was deep into the money and looked up at the leaderboard to see his name near the top. When I figured that out, it became pretty real, and I was like, what is going on?" he recalled. The quiet, intense young man at the table was suddenly a major story. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was real. Celine Dion's son was making a legitimate, deep run. He marched on to day 6, a massive achievement guaranteeing him a significant payout that dwarfed his previous career earnings. More importantly, it earned him respect. The money was secondary. This was about proving something to himself, and perhaps to the ghost of the man who taught him the game. He was no longer just the son of a music icon. He was a legitimate threat in the biggest poker tournament on the planet. When asked if his famous mother shared his passion, he laughed and admitted she didn't, though she appreciated the strategy. "My mom, not so much," he said. "She won't be sitting down in any $2 $5 games across the city anytime soon." But he added a line that bridged his 2 worlds. If he were to make it to the final table, his mother would, for sure, come to watch him play. The possibility was electric. His incredible run eventually came to an end on day 6. While he didn't win the championship bracelet, he won something arguably more valuable: credibility. He had faced the best in the world and proven he belonged. When the last chip was bagged, René Charles Angelil walked away with more than just prize money. He walked away with a new identity. For 24 years, he was Celine Dion's son. Today, he is also René Charles Angelil, the poker player, a serious contender who proved his mettle on poker's biggest stage. This journey answers the legacy question in the most unexpected way. He isn't rejecting his parents' monumental legacy. He is adding a completely new and deeply personal chapter to the Angelil family story. He is honoring his father not by imitation, but by embracing the passion his father held so dear and taking it to a level René Angelil himself never reached in a tournament setting. This directly confronts the Nepo baby conflict. It would have been far easier to pursue music, where his name would have opened every door. By choosing poker, he chose the harder road. It's a field where nepotism is worthless. The cards are the great equalizer. Your pedigree can't save you from a bad beat. His deep run at the WSOP was a victory of hard work, a definitive statement that he is the master of his own fate. He found his own arena, a place where he could be judged solely on his own skill. He took the inheritance from his father, not the wealth, but the passion for strategy and psychological battle. And he made it his own. He stepped out from under one of the biggest shadows in entertainment history, not into the darkness, but into the bright, intense spotlight of the poker world. In the end, René Charles Angelil's story is a powerful lesson in self-determination. He has confirmed what many suspected, that the quiet, intense spirit of his father, the gambler and strategist, was just as much a part of his DNA as his mother's artistic soul. He looked at the hand he was dealt in life and, instead of playing it the way everyone thought he should, chose to risk it all on his own terms. And it's paying off. He is no longer just the heir to a throne. He's a man building his own table and placing his own bets on his future. The journey out of a parent's shadow is never easy, but it's a path that requires the courage to write your own script. René Charles Angelil has shown the world that he is not afraid to play his own game, by his own rules. He has taken a legacy of performance and translated it from the grand stage of music to the intense felt of the poker table, creating a narrative that is uniquely his. What do you think is more difficult, living up to a famous parent's legacy in the same field or carving out a completely new identity in a different one? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.